So hi everyone, thanks for joining. Really happy to have you here, and I would also like to thank Emma for accepting our request to do this webinar. I won't take long. As I said, I spoke to a number of people about this webinar, and the main objective of the webinar is to give you a very quick overview of Thrive and its unique characteristics, if you like, and I'll leave it in Emma's good hands to show you how it works and what it does.
Thanks, Mark. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today. As you can see from the title on the screen, we're going to be talking about how we unlock the secrets of building high-performance teams. So just to introduce myself, I am Emma Hatto. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Thrive. So quick bit of housekeeping and agenda with some of the points that we're going to cover today. This is a webinar, so as I mentioned, cameras are off, but let's make this as interactive as possible. So if you do have any questions, I'm certainly going to be asking some questions throughout. Please feel free to shout at me, or you can raise your hand if you'd like to. You can do that using the Zoom feature, and I will come to you. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be digging into some pain points, so things that I hear kind of in the market, to see kind of where you kind of might agree or disagree as to some of the pain points that you have within kind of the people part of your businesses at the moment. I'll then spend some time introducing Thrive and what we do. Very importantly, I'll be talking about the science that sits behind the assessments. We're then going to jump into the platform quickly. And then at the end, we'll just have some time for some questions. But as I say, please do feel free to kind of put your hand up if there's anything there that you would like to discuss. So let's start with the interactive bit. I believe everyone on this call is either in a HR team or a business leader. And when I'm speaking to other business leaders and people in your positions, these are the pain points that I hear kind of time and time again. So people tell me that the time to hire takes too long. So from that moment that you see a CV through to actually making a decision, you can lose candidates, and that time to hire is too long of a time. I hear time and time again that people have made the wrong hires. We've all been there, we've all done it. We know it's very expensive to make the wrong hires. I know that there's skill gaps within teams, so really understanding kind of what those gaps are and how we can improve them. Personality and abilities. So often when we're doing interviews, we actually focus more on that person's experience and maybe things like their education, etc., where we don't really focus in on the personality and ability, which, as I'm going to talk about in a minute, is actually what provides the best success when it comes to recruitment. Diversity and inclusion. We often hire people that look, sound, went to the same school as us, and therefore we don't end up with a diverse workforce. So that's a problem I know lots of businesses are trying to solve. And then also we find that businesses have unengaged employees. So they might have been there a long time. They might not feel like they've been developed. They might feel like they've gone into the wrong business. You might feel like they've gone into the wrong business, and therefore they're unengaged, and we therefore don't get the best performance out of them. So does anyone want to shout at me what their pain points, any that they feel that kind of are the top priorities at the moment in the business? See if I can get some chat out of anybody. No? Okay, well, hopefully that means that all of those pain points are areas that you feel are relevant to the business at the moment. So let's sort of look into this further. So a lack of objective and scientific data is actually costing businesses millions. And there's lots of reasons why. Decreased employee productivity and performance is a major kind of issue. We often find that higher employee turnover and retention challenges if businesses aren't focusing on hiring the right people and developing those people. If there's a lack of targeted development and training within the business, that can obviously cost the business money. People tend to leave. If there's no structure to succession planning, so really understanding who the people are that should be being promoted and being kind of leaders within the business. That lack of employee self-development. So we know that employees really like to understand their future development and what the business is going to do to support that. And then often inefficient hiring and talent mobility. So if we don't hire the right people at the beginning, then we know that that's going to be a big cost to the business. So how can Thrive help? So we are a technology platform that uses psychometric assessments to give people leaders objective data. And what that does is it helps them find candidates, it helps businesses make better hiring decisions, and it helps transform employees. So we know that people are the most important part of any organization, yet often they're actually the most understood, which then results in poor decisions and bad hires being made. So we really want to radically improve this by understanding the measurement of behavior in the workforce. So understanding the people, understanding what motivates them to help them drive performance. And so we use data and advanced psychology and insights to accurately measure, predict, and upskill employees. We have this kind of winning formula that we work by. So finding and testing talents for the right behavior. So this is your incoming talent, making sure you get the right people in the business first time. Then measuring those people throughout their employee life cycle to see how their behaviors are changing once they're in the business and how you can lean into those behaviors, which is then going to give you this thriving business with lots of engaged and motivated employees. Now, it's all well and good me saying this, but kind of what's the reason that we should be using psychometrics is the big question. So there's lots and lots of academic research out there that shows that if you assess both personality and cognitive ability, these are going to be your highest predictors of job success. So yes, education experience can be important for some roles. In fact, then sometimes they're not important at all. It really depends on the role. But psychometric assessments are actually 14 times better at predicting future job success than interviews that alone, work experience, CVs, and education. So really what we want to be doing is taking the current process that we have at the moment and improving that by adding an extra layer of data and therefore insurance to make sure that you're making the right decisions. Okay, so let's jump in and I'll show you a little bit about how this works. So today for the demo, I'm assuming that we're all hiring sales executives. That might not necessarily be the roles that you are hiring for, but within Thrive, you can come into the platform and you can type in the role that you are hiring for at the moment. What this is going to do is it's going to start by giving you some ability and personality traits that you should be assessing if you're hiring a sales executive. Obviously, if you're hiring a CEO or a data analyst or an engineer, the types of assessments that you're going to be looking at will be different based on the role. So everything we do here at Thrive is job specific. So for a sales executive, our psychologists suggest that you assess this person's verbal reasoning because they're going to be making lots of decisions from written communication, and also their logical thinking. They're going to need to problem solve and be very structured in the way that they work. You might then decide that actually the salesperson's also going to be very numbers driven, and therefore you're going to want to measure how they analyze numerical data. You might think that they need good working memory, so you can come through and add a working memory assessment. On the personality side, our psychologists say for a sales executive, we need somebody very analytical. We need someone who's very proactive and enthusiastic and motivated. And then we also need somebody who conscientiously sees tasks through to completion. So I know with my sales team, it's really important that they actually do follow those tasks and update the CRM and all those kind of boring tasks that we have in sales, as well as exciting stuff. But the important thing here is that every business is going to be different. So you as a business can come through and either decide which ones you'd like to delete and other traits that you might look for. So you might be somebody that has a sales team that needs to be highly inquisitive. You might need them to be very influential in terms of how they kind of assert themselves and express their opinions. So again, you come through and pick any other traits that you feel are most relevant for the role. At the top here, you're going to see that we've got this total time of 30 minutes. So you can see from a candidate's perspective, it's going to take them 30 minutes to complete both these personality and ability assessments. You'll also see at the top that we have multiple languages, so you can assess outside of English as well. Great, just coming through to the results as to what you'll see. So you'll end up with a campaign page that looks like this. So after we've sent out the assessments, the results come back into our platform. We have our candidates named here on the left-hand side, and we give you this overall job fit. So you can see at the top here, Nancy is an excellent fit candidate, coming through to Amber, who's a poor fit candidate. So we talk about that time to hire. So this information means that you're unlikely to take Amber any further in the interview process, and therefore it's going to remove that person and that time spent in that interview process. Anyone who's a moderate fit and above, we suggest taking through to the interview process. And you can start to compare candidates and their data by coming through and looking at their results. I'm going to take Louise here as my example. So Louise has been assessed for a sales role. And what we do is we take her individual scores and we benchmark them. You can see this average line down the middle here against thousands of other sales people around the world to see how aligned she is to these traits compared to her peers. So in this case, Louise is below the average in her verbal reasoning, average in her numerical reasoning. And then we can see with her personality, there's no right or wrong with anybody's personality, but we can see that resilience, adaptability, and achieving are going to be her strong areas. We can come over here and see what that actually means. And the areas that we really want to focus on in the interview are areas like ownership, conscientious, and then obviously verbal reasoning. So if I was bringing this candidate in for an interview, these are the areas that I'm going to really focus in on the most. What we then do is we provide you with job-specific interview questions around this personality trait. So when you are interviewing this candidate, you can come through, ask these questions, and really start to understand, is that a personality trait that could potentially be a risk once they're in the business? Or is it an area that they can provide lots of information on and actually you feel comfortable with making that hiring decision with this person? So essentially, we're giving you that objective data that's going to help you understand this candidate more, give you information that you won't be able to find just in an interview, and then give you that next step, that kind of what do we do now, the interview questions, then really be able to understand that person, open up better conversations, and therefore make better hiring decisions. One thing that is important as well is that we also provide not only reports to you, but we provide reports to the candidate as well. So I really talked about at the beginning how understanding your development areas is an important point in terms of your career. So with the candidate, we provide them with a breakdown of their results, and where there's areas to develop, we actually give them some tips on how to develop those areas as well. So if you have a candidate that does get the job, they've got something they can walk into the businesses straight away, and they can start making those development areas. We also then follow that employee through their life cycle in the business and help you with tips on how to improve their behaviours over time. So we'll keep assessing them throughout the year to be able to understand how to make those improvements. On the other side, if this person doesn't get the job, they've at least got something they can walk away with and they can take to another interview to help them improve over time. And so that's a really good candidate experience from your point of view. Great for your brand awareness as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight into how the platform works and really the data that you're going to be getting off the back of these assessments and how you're then going to be using that to make better hiring decisions going forward. Great. I'm going to stop there and ask if anybody has any questions. Again, please feel free to raise your hand, or if you'd just like to speak, you will have your sound on, so you will be able to do that. Everyone's being very shy today, so no questions at all. Mark, any questions from your side or anything that you feel that sort of popped up that you'd like to kind of dig into a little bit further?
I mean, obviously, no questions. There are two things that I'd like to point out. Ideally, these kind of tests are performed in between the first and the second interview. and the questions that the platform highlights are asked in the second interview, and that way you can have a data-driven conversation during the second interview.
Yeah.
Also, again, if you have any biases or if you have any thoughts, you can use the second interview to clarify using this data. And the other thing as well, as Emma said, one of the benefits and the value that these kind of tests bring to the companies is that, as we know, bad hires cost a lot of money. They cost a lot of frustration, and also of course, they cause double work as well, because you would think that you've closed the role and you can move on doing something else, and all of a sudden you find that the person, after 2, 3, 4, 5 months, this person is not the right fit, and you have to think about redeploying the person in another department, or maybe even go through the pains of terminating the person during probation. So this is one scientific way of managing those risks. And hence the reason why we believe that using psychometric assessments is a very effective way of minimizing risks.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a raised hand from Layla. Layla, are you able to speak? If your sound's not working, then feel free to use the Q&A section. Oh, you have, sorry. How are the specific traits for each vacancy determined? We're thinking of using these for candidates who are not yet assigned to a service line at recruitment stage. Would the traits be a conversation between us and yourselves? Yeah, it's a good question. So they are job specific. So for example, as I mentioned with that sales role, our psychologists have done the research and understand what good looks like within that role. If you have sort of a generalist candidate, you're not really sure which direction they should go in, we can set up just a sort of generic ability and personality assessments for you. And then what that will do is it will start to show you kind of their strengths, and the results from that will help you determine where they should go in the future. So, for example, if they're coming up as very analytical, very good at problem solving, you're going to want to put them into more, say, of an analytical role. If there's somebody that's very sociable, very persuasive, very good at influencing, and then you potentially be looking at more of kind of like a sales type role. So we can certainly work with you to make sure we get that set up on a more customized basis for you. No problem. Any other questions from anybody else? Okay, yeah, I'd just like to sort of mirror what Mark said in terms of the process. That's probably something I should have mentioned. So typically we see businesses use this between the first and the second round. But Layla, in fact, in your case, if you've got candidates who maybe have no experience and you want to be able to identify where they should go or understand them without having any kind of other data to go off, then this is a really good tool to be able to use right at the beginning of your process to help you identify more information about those people. Great. Well, perfect. I've just seen your answer there. Thank you very much. I'll be following up with this recording as well as the slides here. But if anybody has any questions, obviously feel free to go to Mark. He'll have a lot of the answers as well. But if anyone has any direct questions, I'm very happy to answer them. I'm sure Mark will be able to send around my contact details. And I'm easily found on LinkedIn with the name Emma Hatto. Great. Thank you, Mark. If there's nothing else, then we will finish there. You're on mute, so I can't.
Oh, yes. No, I am using it. So first of all, thank you, Emma, for doing this webinar. I would also like to thank the participants again. I mean, as Emma said, if you have any questions, feel free to contact either me or Emma, and we will be more than happy to help. I mean, there's Andy as well, who's our head of recruitment, who's also very knowledgeable about psychometric assessments. He has over 20 years experience, and again, if you're dealing directly with Andy, you can also speak to Andy, and I'm more than sure that he's more than capable to answer your questions. So thank you once again for joining, and thank you, Emma.
Thanks, everyone. Speak to you soon. Thanks, Mark.
Bye bye.